Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to cut through the noise, find those really potent sources of knowledge, and we'll turn them into fluency for you. Or, maybe more accurately today, linguistic mastery.
That's right.
We're all about giving you that shortcut to being genuinely well-informed, especially, in how natural conversation actually works. Okay, let's unpack this. We got this really interesting request. Someone wants to move beyond just memorizing vocabulary lists, past the textbook stuff. They want the real deal, those functional phrases native speakers use all the time, almost without thinking, the ones that make conversations just flow.
Yeah, the invisible glue.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So our mission today is pretty tactical. We're going to break down 4 specific, very common phrases, but we're not just defining them.
No, definitions only get you so far.
Right. We're focusing completely on how they're used. Practical, real-world scenarios. It's all about application, social cues, and sounding, well, effortless when you speak.
What's fascinating here is just how clearly that request was put. It really underlines a core idea in applied linguistics, doesn't it?
How so?
Well, knowing what a word means is one thing. That's kind of the easy part.
Okay.
But understanding let's say, the subtle social cost or the grammatical implications of using a phrase correctly or incorrectly, that's the real challenge for fluency.
Right. It's about social competence, not just vocabulary.
Precisely. So if you're learning English, or maybe you just feel your English sounds a bit too stiff, too formal.
Or robotic, even.
Yeah, exactly. This deep dive is absolutely for you. We're basically providing the blueprint for how to actually use these phrases effectively, so your speech sounds natural, whether you're feeling stressed, relaxed, or just trying to guide a discussion.
And the 4 phrases we've pulled out today, they're classic examples, aren't they? Super high frequency, each doing a really critical job.
They are.
We've got during something, then what's taking so long? Sleep in. And finally, speaking of something, we should definitely give each one a proper look.
Absolutely. Let's get into it. So maybe let's start with the why. Why focus on these short, common phrases instead of, say, memorizing lists of advanced vocabulary?
Good question. Because honestly, sometimes learners think advanced words are the key.
Right, but these phrases, they're not just vocabulary items in the usual sense, they are functional tools. Think about the actual work they do in a sentence, in a conversation.
Okay, like tools in a toolbox.
Exactly like tools. During something, that's your precision time marker. What's taking so long? That's often an emotional outlet, right? Expressing impatience.
Definitely felt that one before.
Yeah. Sleep in. That defines a very specific choice about your routine, about relaxation.
Okay.
And speaking of something that's like the hidden structure, the thing that connects different parts of a conversation smoothly.
That distinction functional tool versus just a descriptive word that feels really important.
It is.
Because if you miss that function, that context,
Yeah.
your English could be perfect grammatically but still sound off, right? A bit awkward, maybe too formal.
Precisely. And these phrases, they offer quick wins. They help bridge that gap between, textbook English and how people actually talk in the real world.
I like the toolbox analogy you mentioned. Or maybe like building a house.
Go on.
Well, maybe complex vocabulary words are like the fancy decorations, the paint color, the expensive tiles.
Okay, I see where you're going.
But these common functional phrases, they're the essential bits. The nails, the screws, the basic framework. Small, maybe not glamorous, but you absolutely need them. Without them, the whole thing feels wobbly.
That's a great way to put it. It holds together. And that connects directly to why scenario-based learning is so crucial, which the source material really stress.
Right. Just knowing the dictionary definition isn't enough.
Not at all. Take what's taking so long.
Yeah.
Why does just knowing the definition fail you in practice?
Because it's almost never just a neutral question about time.
Exactly. Its real meaning, its impact depends almost entirely on the context and, crucially, the tone of voice, not the dictionary definition.
So if you look it up, it just says, inquiring about delay.
Right. But in real life, it's usually got an edge. It's a veiled complaint, maybe communicating impatience, or sometimes even sounding a bit aggressive.
Yeah, I could see that.
So a learner who only knows the literal meaning might use it quite innocently.
And end up sounding really demanding or rude by accident.
Precisely. That's the risk. So you, the learner, you need to internalize that it's the who, the where, the relationship between the speakers. That's what dictates what the phrase actually means in that moment.
Ignoring that social layer.
Yeah.
That's probably a big source of awkward moments for learners.
It's probably the #1 reason for those uncomfortable social interactions, yeah.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, getting these short phrases right, it's actually a pretty strong sign of advanced fluency, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Using them correctly tells a native listener that you're not just translating words in your head, you're actually thinking and operating within the sort of cultural and social flow of the language itself.
You've nailed it. These phrases are key ingredients for sounding spontaneous, for reacting naturally. They let you respond instantly to something happening, to an emotion, to where the conversation is going without needing to build a whole complex sentence from scratch first.
So we're basically teaching how to deploy these linguistic tools quickly and effectively.
That's the goal, rapid deployment.
Okay, let's dive into the first specific phrase then. During something. Looks pretty simple on the surface.
Deceptively simple, maybe?
Yeah, it's a basic preposition, but getting its use precise is so important for clear communication, especially when you compare it to similar words.
Right. Its main job, its core function, is to set up a specific time frame, usually a continuous bounded period, and within that time frame, something else happens or exists.
It sort of frames the event, like painting the background, as you said earlier.
Exactly. It tells the listener, okay, within the known boundaries of event X, this other thing, Y, happened.
So what's the grammar point learners really need to get right here?
The absolute key is remembering during is a preposition. And prepositions, well, they need a noun or a noun phrase right after them, always.
Okay.
And that noun phrase has to represent a continuous defined event or period. Think fixed blocks of time, like during the meeting, during the summer, during the 1990s, during the flight. These are all defined periods or events represented by nouns or noun phrases.
Right, so the critical error is when people try to follow during with, like a description of an action with a verb.
That's the common pitfall.
Yeah.
If you see a subject and a verb describing an action happening at the same time, you absolutely cannot use during. That's where you need a conjunction, usually while.
Okay, let's spend a moment on that contrast. During versus while. Why does while work where doing fails?
Because their grammatical jobs are totally different. While is a subordinating conjunction.
Meaning it joins clauses.
Exactly. Which means it must be followed by a clause, a subject, and a verb describing an action. While is used specifically to show two actions happening simultaneously.
Can you give an example?
Sure. She read a book while she was waiting. See, two actions. Reading and waiting. Both happen at the same time, both described with subject-verb clauses.
Okay. And if I wanted to use during in a similar context?
You'd have to change the structure. You couldn't say during she was waiting. That's grammatically impossible.
Because she was waiting is a clause.
Right. You'd have to turn that waiting period into a noun phrase. You could say, perhaps, she read a book during her wait. Now, her wait is a noun phrase, a thing, a period of time.
Ah, I see. So the structure forces the choice.
Absolutely. If you want to name the defined event or period, the noun, use during. If you want to describe the simultaneous ongoing action, the clause, use while. It's a very clear distinction once you see it.
That does make sense. Now, what about the other competitor? Learners often mix up for as well. How is for different?
For is all about quantity. It measures the duration, the length of time an action lasted. It almost always needs a quantifiable amount of time after it.
Like numbers.
Usually, yes. He waited for 2 hours. They lived there for 10 years. We talked for a few minutes. It's about the length. The span.
So you never say he waited during 2 hours.
Never. It sounds completely wrong to a native speaker. You use during to name the container event during the party, and for to say how long something lasted within or separate to that event. We talked for an hour.
Okay, let's try a practical example, maybe a business context. If I'm reporting on a conference, if I want to say I was constantly talking to a client throughout the whole event, I'd use during.
Yes. I was in constant contact during the entire conference. The conference is your defined noun event.
Okay. But if I wanted to specify the length of one particular meeting at the conference?
Then you'd switch to for. We discussed the budget for 30 minutes. That's the duration.
Got it. And if my colleague was doing something else at the same time I was presenting?
Now you need while, because you have two simultaneous actions described with clauses. My colleague took notes while I presented the quarterly results.
It's subtle. But getting during right really adds clarity, doesn't it?
It really does. Whether you're talking about history, major reforms happened during that decade, or just planning your day, let's meet during the lunch break. That little word ensures everyone understands the exact temporal frame you're talking about.
Small word, big structural job.
You got it.
Okay, shifting gears now. We're moving from the logical precision of time with during
Right.
to something driven entirely by emotion.
Yeah.
What's taking so long? This feels like a huge leap. It's less about grammar, more about feeling, implication.
Oh, absolutely. This phrase is, well, it can be a bit of a loaded gun. It's rarely just a neutral question about how much time something is taking.
Right. It almost always carries something else.
It does. It carries an underlying message that the expected speed, the expected timeline hasn't been met. So the feeling behind it is almost always some level of impatience, maybe irritation, or depending on how you say it, even real frustration.
So the literal meaning, why is this delayed?
Hmm.
It's kind of misleading.
It's almost useless on its own, yeah. You have to understand the unspoken part. The phrase implies the speaker feels they have some kind of right, maybe social, maybe hierarchical, to question or critique the other person's speed.
And the tone of voice must be absolutely critical here.
It's everything. And the scenarios really highlight that. Let's start with a common one, low stakes between equals, like friends or partners.
Okay.
Scenario 1, mild or joking. Imagine, say, a couple getting ready to go out for dinner. One person's ready, waiting by the door, maybe tapping their foot playfully.
I know this scene well.
They might call out, maybe with a bit of a smile or an eye roll, "Come on, we're going to miss our reservation. What's taking so long?"
Okay, so here it's light, a tease.
Exactly. It's a gentle nudge. It communicates, "I'm getting a bit bored waiting," but it's cushioned by the relationship, the shared context. There's no real anger there. It's annoyance, maybe, but playful.
Right, the relationship feels safe enough for that little jab.
Yeah.
Now contrast that with, say, a boss talking to an employee. That vertical relationship changes everything.
Completely. Scenario 2. Serious or authoritative. Picture a manager whose report was due an hour ago. They walk over to the employee's desk. Maybe they stand there for a second.
Yeah, that's already pressure.
Right. And then they say, maybe quite firmly, "Look, the team needs this data for the afternoon meeting. What's taking so long? I need that report on my desk."
Oof. Okay, that's totally different.
Totally. It's not a joke anymore. It's a direct challenge. It's demanding an explanation for the delay. It's signaling dissatisfaction, maybe even questioning competence. The authority behind the speaker turns the phrase into something sharp.
That distinction is so crucial for a learner. In a hierarchy, that phrase can become really quite aggressive.
It can. Which leads us to the major pitfall, using it inappropriately, especially in service situations or with strangers.
Yeah. I can imagine that going badly.
Scenario 3, inappropriate use. This is where learners can really slip up. If you're waiting in a long queue at the post office or maybe for tech support to fix something, walking up and demanding, "What's taking so long?" sounds incredibly rude. It implies you think the person serving you is deliberately slow or lazy or incompetent.
It makes assumptions.
Exactly. It assumes the delay is their fault and that you have the right to call them out on it. In those situations, dealing with service staff or officials or strangers, a fluent speaker uses much more neutral language.
Like what?
Like, "Excuse me, could you give me an estimate of the waiting time?" Or, "Is there an update on when this might be ready?" Phrasing it as a polite request for information, not a demand or a criticism.
That makes sense. You're asking, not accusing. I hadn't quite framed it like that before, but what's taking so long?
Yeah.
Really does seem to imply a belief that the delay is unreasonable or due to someone's failure.
Often, yes. It implies the speaker thinks things should be faster, and they're not. It's not usually used when you understand there's a complex process or high demand causing the delay.
So for you, the learner, getting this right is about reading the room, gauging the relationship, the power dynamic, the cultural norms around efficiency.
Absolutely. You have to weigh the social costs before you use it. It's a powerful little phrase, and using it incorrectly can really damage an interaction. It truly is a barometer of social expectation and hierarchy.
Okay, let's completely shift gears again. From impatience and hierarchy to relaxation. Let's talk about the phrasal verb sleep in.
Yes. A much happier topic.
It seems straightforward, but you mentioned earlier there's a crucial distinction here. It forces us to separate intentional choices from, well, mistakes.
Exactly. Sleep in is a fantastic example of why phrasal verbs are so useful and specific in English. We have simpler words like sleep, but sleep in defines something very particular.
Which is?
It's the intentional act of sleeping later than you normally would, usually on a day when you don't have to get up early, like a weekend or a holiday.
So it implies enjoyment. A treat.
Yes, absolutely. It implies indulgence, relaxation, maybe catching up on rest. It's a conscious choice to stay in bed longer.
And the non-negotiable part for fluency, you said, is keeping this separate
from oversleep. Confusing these two is a really common error for learners, and it completely changes the meaning of what you're saying.
Okay, so let's define oversleep clearly first.
Right. Oversleep means you slept unintentionally longer than you planned or needed to. You failed to wake up on time.
So you probably missed your alarm.
Exactly. You missed your alarm, you woke up late, and usually there's a negative consequence. You're late for work, you missed an appointment, something like that.
Example.
Oh no, I overslept again. I'm going to be late for the meeting. It always carries that sense of mistake, regret, negativity.
Okay, that's clear. Now back to sleep in. You said it's intentional. Why not just say I stayed in bed late? Is sleep in really necessary?
That's a fair question. I stayed in bed late is perfectly grammatical, of course, but it's a bit clunky, a bit purely descriptive.
Okay.
Sleep in is more efficient. It bundles the entire concept, the lateness, the intention, the enjoyment, the relaxation, the day off context, all into just 2 words. It communicates a specific, culturally understood idea of deserved rest very concisely.
Ah, I see. It's packed with meaning.
It really is. And that's why mixing them up can be so bad. Imagine a learner trying to apologize for being late to work.
Okay.
They meant to say, sorry I'm late, I accidentally overslept. But instead they say, sorry I'm late, I decided to sleep in this morning.
Oh, dear. That sounds terrible.
It sounds awful. It sounds like they're saying, yeah, I know I had work, but I consciously chose my own comfort and relaxation over my responsibilities.
That's the difference between an understandable mistake, oversleep, and sounding completely unprofessional and selfish, sleep in that context.
Exactly. Sleep in implies that positive, deliberate choice. Oversleep implies that negative, accidental failure. Getting this right is vital for fluency and just navigating social situations correctly.
So sleep in is perfect for talking about weekends, holidays, days off.
Perfect. I love sleeping in on Saturdays. We slept until 10 a.m. on vacation. I think I'll sleep in tomorrow. I feel exhausted. It's all about that positive, planned relaxation.
It's like you get to sleep in, it's a luxury, but you suffer because you oversleep.
That's a great way to summarize the core difference in feeling.
And grammatically, it's pretty simple. It's an intransitive phrasal verb.
Yeah, very straightforward. You just use it as a unit. I slept in. He likes to sleep in. You don't put anything between sleep and in. It's concise, usually positive, and instantly signals that idea of deserved rest.
Here's where it gets really interesting. It seems like mastering such a simple 2-word phrase actually shows quite a deep understanding, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It shows you get the cultural connection between managing your time and your personal choices.
It really does. It's a small phrase that reveals a lot about understanding nuance.
All right, let's tackle our final phrase. Speaking of something, you said this one is maybe the most advanced tool we're looking at today. Not because it's grammatically complex, but because of what it does in a conversation.
Exactly. It's all about conversational architecture, social lubrication, as you called it earlier. It stops conversations from feeling like just a random list of disconnected topics.
So what's its main job?
Primarily, it's a discourse marker. And its key function is actually about acknowledging the listener, or rather, the previous speaker.
Acknowledging them. How?
It signals, okay, I heard what you just said. I'm connecting to that specific point you made. And now I'm going to smoothly pivot to a thought that's related to it.
So it bridges the gap, prevents an abrupt change of subject.
Precisely. It makes the transition feel natural and collaborative, not jarring. It's the polite, fluent way to sort of gently take the conversational reins and link ideas without sounding rude or like you weren't listening.
And grammatically, what does it need?
It needs to be followed immediately by a noun or a noun phrase that was just mentioned or at least clearly implied in what the previous person said. That noun phrase is the something we're speaking of. It's the anchor.
Okay, let's try an example. Say speaker A is talking about their trip to Italy. They say, the food in Rome was amazing, especially the pasta. How would speaker B use the phrase?
Speaker B might jump in with, speaking of Rome, did you manage to visit the Colosseum while you were there? I heard the queues were long.
Right. So B picked up on Rome, acknowledged it, and then used it to shift the focus slightly from food to sightseeing, but still within the Italy topic.
Exactly. The transition feels smooth because of that explicit link. It shows speaker B was paying attention.
That validation feels key. It's like saying, I acknowledge your point before moving on.
Yeah.
If speaker B had just said, I don't like pasta, but the Colosseum is cool, it would feel really disconnected, maybe even a bit rude.
Completely disconnected. Now let's think about a couple of scenarios maybe showing slightly different ways it's used.
Okay.
Scenario 1, a sleigh bridge, maybe triggering an anecdote. Let's say you're talking about working from home. Speaker A says, I find it hard to stay focused sometimes with all the distractions at home.
Mm-hmm.
Speaker B could reply, speaking of distractions, my neighbor started renovating his kitchen last week. The noise has been unbelievable.
Okay, so B used A's keyword distractions to introduce a related personal story. It keeps the theme going.
Right, a very close thematic link. Now, scenario 2. Maybe a bigger shift, bridging broader topics. Imagine a meeting about company strategy. Speaker A says, we really need to focus on improving employee morale this quarter.
Okay, HR focus.
Speaker B might then say, speaking of focus, we also need to make sure the marketing team is focused on the new product launch.
So B uses the general concept of focus to pivot from HR concerns to marketing strategy. It's a bigger jump, but the phrase makes it feel connected.
Exactly. It uses that shared keyword or concept as a bridge. Mastering this phrase really lifts the learner's conversation skills. It moves you from just making correct sentences to actually managing the flow of a discussion.
It makes you sound more collaborative, more engaged.
Definitely. It signals that you're not just waiting for your turn to talk, but you're actively listening and building on what others say.
It replaces that potentially awkward silence or that maybe slightly clumsy, oh, that reminds me, transition.
Precisely. It's the smooth, sophisticated way to link ideas. So we've looked at 4 really powerful, very common functional phrases today.
Yeah, quite a range.
We've seen during something for that precise time framing,
Mm-hmm.
what's taking so long for expressing impatience or frustration, depending on the context,
Right, the emotional one.
sleep in for defining that specific intentional relaxation.
The positive choice.
And speaking of something, for smoothly connecting conversational threads.
What's the common thread tying them all together, would you say?
I think it comes back to what we said at the start. They all absolutely demand scenario-based understanding. You simply cannot rely on a dictionary definition alone.
Yeah.
You have to grasp the social context, the grammatical constraints, the emotional weight, the implication of using each phrase in a specific situation. That's the key takeaway.
So, for our final takeaway, for you listening, maybe some active practice.
Definitely. The best way to solidify this is to start noticing these phrases in the wild.
How would you suggest doing that?
Well, over the next week, maybe, when you're listening to English, could be podcasts, movies, conversations, actively listen for these 4 phrases.
Mm-hmm.
When you hear someone say, during the meeting, pause for a second, ask yourself, why during? Why not while? What noun phrase followed it?
And if you hear, what's taking so long?
Mm-hmm. Immediately analyze the situation. Who said it? Who were they talking to? What was the tone joking? Serious? Angry? Was it appropriate for their relationship?
Okay. And for sleep in.
Notice the context again. Was it someone happily planning their weekend? I'm to sleep in tomorrow. Or was it someone sheepishly making an excuse for being late? If it's the latter, ding, 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 they might have made that fluency error we talked about.
And speaking of something,
listen for what came before it and what came after it. What was the linking word or idea? How did the phrase help the conversation flow? Did it feel natural?
the goal here isn't just recognition, is it? It's about internalizing the rules so you can use them yourself.
Exactly. This whole deep dive is about accelerating that application. Once you really get the hidden rules, like sleep in is a positive choice, or what's taking so long carries potential aggression, you can move beyond just recognizing them.
You can start using them confidently.
Yeah.
And correctly.
That's the aim, using them appropriately in your own speech immediately. That's the path to genuine conversational mastery.
Yeah, this kind of detailed understanding, it really moves your communication beyond just exchanging information. It makes it feel more fluent, more engaged, more real.
Well put. Hashtag tag tag. Outro.
So there we have it. We took 4 seemingly tiny English phrases and really unpacked them. Showed how much grammatical and social meaning they carry.
Yeah, small phrases, big impact.
We really hope this deep dive into scenario-based usage has maybe cleared up some of those tricky fluency hurdles for you.
And maybe a final thought for you to chew on, something to take away.
Go for it.
Well, if we agree that the goal of communication is often about efficiency, connection, clarity, then think about this. What other seemingly simple linguistic tools carry a similar weight?
Like what?
Maybe other single-word prepositions like at or on, which can be tricky with time and place, or other short, common phrasal verbs. Which ones also depend heavily on context, tone, social rules?
That's a great question. It forces you to look beyond the obvious.
Right. So the question for you is, which small functional phrase are you going to tackle next? Which one will you master to get one step closer to sounding truly natural?
So what does this all mean? It means you've hopefully got some new tools now, not just to speak English, but to really dive into the culture of conversation itself and sound smoother while doing it.
Hopefully.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.
Mhm.
Until next time.